This is the best way to punish a murderer. First, strip the criminal of all their clothes. Then the others force him into the bathtub. Next, they smash huge blocks of ice and dump them all in at once. To prevent the criminal from trying to escape, the servants kindly seal the exit with a wooden board. Finally, they tightly wrap the cover with hemp ropes. As the ice continues to chill the woman's body, her temperature rapidly drops to freezing point. Her limbs become numb and unresponsive. When he turns to look at his companion, he sees that the person's face has turned a deathly blue. At that moment, the woman feels deep despair, just as she's about to slip into unconsciousness. The maid unexpectedly returns at the perfect time. She thought her life might be spared, but she couldn't have imagined that even worse awaited her. Afterwards, the woman was locked in solitary confinement for 3 days and nights. After repeated torture, she was diagnosed with mild mental illness, but that wasn't the end. She was then brought to a small, dark room, where countless other criminals were locked up. The screams from inside were enough to show that the human traffickers were enduring inhuman torture. But what no one expected was that Mary's true identity wasn't that of a human trafficker. Just days ago, she had been the young lady of a wealthy family, but because she had the ability to see things others couldn't, her parents thought she was mentally ill. So they sent her to a psychiatric hospital. Soon after, Mary was assigned to a dorm. Although the living conditions were filthy and chaotic, she had no choice but to stay. After observing for a few days, Mary realized that most of the patients here were actually normal people. Most had been kicked out by their husbands. Some patients tried to escape, but they were forcibly brought back and subjected to intense treatments day after day. The once normal minds of these people began to change. At that point, Mary realized she couldn't stay here much longer, or she'd eventually lose her sanity too. So she went to find the head nurse the next day. To prove her ability to see things beyond the ordinary, she described in detail the appearance of the nurse's deceased sister, even mentioning the birthmarks on her body. But the head nurse didn't believe her, thinking Mary had just done some research in advance to make herself seem normal and get out of here. However, deep down, the nurse could tell that Mary was a sane person, so she arranged for the attending physician to conduct further tests. But when the doctor saw Mary's beautiful face, he became distracted by his own thoughts. No matter how much Mary tried to explain, the nurse still arranged for bi-weekly treatments. But this didn't break Mary. In fact, it only strengthened her desire to escape. Then came the psychiatric hospital's annual gathering, where the guests were all high-ranking officials. The dancers performing weren't professionals, but patients from the psychiatric hospital. They were dressed to appeal to the noble guests, who were then invited to choose one. After a few drinks, the aristocrats started getting handsy with the patients, without caring whether they were mentally stable or not. At that moment, Mary saw her chance. She decided to use the chaos of the ball to escape. After spending so much time together, the head nurse had gradually realized that Mary was normal. Since the head nurse was genuinely kind-hearted, she had come to the hospital to help the real patients. Clearly, Mary didn't belong here. So, the two of them made a plan to escape together. But when Mary reached the hall, one of the orderlies suddenly set his sights on her. Luckily, she managed to slip into the crowd during the noisy moment, avoiding capture. At the same time, Mary's brother had arrived to help her. The head nurse followed Mary to a room, and they quickly changed into new clothes. Then, under the cover of night, they hurried to escape the hospital. Soon, they reached the back door, where a car had been waiting for them. Just as they were about to leave, they were spotted by those who had been chasing them. With no time left to escape, the head nurse made the decision to stay behind and resolutely closed the steel door in front of her. She knew this was the only way Mary could escape. Though Mary was heartbroken, she couldn't stay there any longer. So after saying a final goodbye to the head nurse, she got into the car and fled the hospital. As for the head nurse, she was locked away in a psychiatric ward for letting Mary escape. Although Mary had gained her freedom, she didn't return to her old family. Instead, she went to live by the sea, writing letters to the head nurse from time to time. While her body was confined in a prison, her heart had found freedom.